Brewing Network.
Okay, thank you everybody to be here. I'm very happy to be here. And first of all, I want to introduce the Italian beer scene, our lovely, incredible beer scene we have in Italy now. We start in the middle of the 90s, 1996, with 7 breweries, and now we have 400, near 400 breweries, microbreweries and brew pubs. The first were located mainly in northern Italy. Now we cover all the region, everywhere, South and Island included. Michael Jackson, in his book World Guide to Beer, 1977, gave a lot of pages to Belgium, a lot of pages to UK, Germany, Czech Republic, and the emerging US, and only 3 lines in the Mediterranean chapter for Italy, Spain, and other countries. 30 years after, in 2007, I had the great honor to write the chapter of his last book. He died in August, and the book was published in March. Italy gave 6 full pages, more than France, Austria, Netherlands. Only 30 years from last, we are now 6th position. I'm very proud of this. And of course, something has changed in Italy. The first beer shop was opened in 1995 in Milano. Wine bar, restaurants now host have a list close to the beer, to the wine list, a beer list. Helped also for the great packaging. We have one of the made in Italy. Also is the design of our bottles. You can see a lot of pictures there about this. And the home brewing, I want to say 2 words about the home brewing. Growing very fast in Italy, and now the average in our home brewing competition is very high. We organize, as MOBI is the Italian Beer Consumer Union, we organize a championship giving points to the first, the second and the third, and the next one will be in Palermo, and the average is very high. We invited judges from everywhere, US included. So this is, there are a great moment for us. And finally, I want to say 2 words, to spend 2 words about beer and food. You know, we are great lovers of good food. And I don't want to be polemic, but about beer and food, I read books written by American and British. Okay, I think we will take the power in the next future. We take the power, and some chef now are making the cuisine à la bière and have included beer in their menu. And pairing beer and food is more and more common in Italy. And in Italy now there are a lot of festival events and lesson courses, books about beer, and was born a new consumers. The old consumers who drank mass market lager and barb is finished. Now we have the new consumer who want to be served in the right way. He asks why this beer is cloud, why this beer is full of flavor, why. And the duty of the publican is to be clever and to train the staff to be ready to reply to answer to the questions. For me, this is beer culture, and now we are in a great moment. I hope this moment will continue in the next future. Thank you very much. Thank you. The matter of this presentation is Italy and US connection. Why? Because in in the beginning of the 2000, thanks God, the American came to Italy. Charlie Papazian brought with him some brewers in the main event like Pianeta Beer in Rimini, do you remember? And Salone del Gusto hosted by Slow Food in Torino. So for the first time, the Italian drinkers and consumers, beer lovers, had the great opportunity to taste this new beer with the great hops, with great flavor, with full of fantasy, creativity. After that, our brewers follow the example. For me, it's very important to say we don't make a copy, cut and paste beer. We take inspiration to your ingredients, to your fantasy, but we make Italian beer. There are a lot of made in Italy now beer styles. The first one was chestnut beer. All beer different because Italy is long and narrow, and a chestnut from Piedmont had nothing to do with a chestnut of Naples. Not only the chestnut. So furthermore, chestnut is used in different way. Roasted, smoked, dried. So all the beer are different. Another made in Italy is the beer using unusual grains like spelt, for example. There's an example in Leonardo, using local grains. Another made in Italy is using local fruit. In Italy we say chilometro zero, 0 kilometer, but some of our brewers make centimetro zero, 0 centimeter. They put the ingredients in the courtyard. And then the new emerging made in Italy is beer related, linked to the world of wine. Brewers, they use barrels, more and more common, use wine yeast, grapes, boiled wort. It's normal for a wine country to the link to beer, between beer and wine. This is the made in Italy we have. And after this start a cooperation between Italian brewers and American brewers. There's a lot of examples. Gareth Oliver brewing in Italy, Sam and Leo, but now I give you the word. And this link is more and more strong. I hope in future it will be stronger more and more. So I leave the word to Sam about your project, about what you think about Italy, about this great project. Everybody knows. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorenzo. I want to mention that 0 kilometer idea that Lorenzo talked about. We have the same phenomena here, albeit different name, which is localvore. But I think the Italians really got moving on that cheerleading earlier than we did. For those of you guys familiar with the slow food movement, it started in Italy, I believe, as a result of people revolting against McDonald's going into Rome. You know, they rioted and said, we don't want your crappy generic food, we want our own local food. And the slow food conference that started up around that is really where I think the Italian brewers got our chocolate in the peanut butter of the American brewers. We got to learn so much from how far Italy was ahead of us on the localvore 0 kilometer movement, and how passionate they are about pairing good beverages with food, albeit usually wine. And then we got to kind of show them the little creative head start we had for the last 30 years on brewing. And like Lorenzo said, they put their own spin on it and made it very genuine, authentic with their own terroir. But real quickly before I hand it over to my fellow panelists, the first 2 beers you had was our Festina Lente, and I think it was one of the first American wild beers done 7 years ago. And the name is Latin for make haste slowly, which is why it sort of has some relevance to what we're talking about up here. And the second beer is our Maya Antonia, or Maya Antonia. which is a continually hot Pilsner, the only lager our brewery does. And it's a beer that Leonardo and I collaborated on. And I'm very proud, and I really admire the way old world companies do business. We don't have any contracts. There was just a handshake that said, you guys do your version, sell it in Europe. We'll do our version, sell it in North America. And the same thing holds true for the Italy collaboration, Leo Teo and I do with Mario Batali in New York City. No contracts, just trust, working together to turn more people onto how well beer and food go together. Leonardo, do you want to comment on your brewery, early Italian craft brewing history, and my Antonia?
Yes, hi everyone. And the Italian history about microbrewery is pretty new. I mean that about 10 years ago, the Italian movement, the beer movement in Italy was like nothing, or just there were just only few breweries and selling just only few beers. But now in this moment there is a big explosion, like perhaps was happened here in the United States, and a little bit of influence has been the US craft beer movement, because all the Italian brewers take the inspiration in the creativity and in the idea to make different beers, new beers from the US movement. And now there is just like a child that is aging and growing on. So it's full of new breweries, full of beer lovers, and also the beer enthusiasts. So they give to the beer a special character and a special strength. And the connection with Sam is very interesting, because we met about 4 years ago in Montreal, and we started the idea to brew this beer, the My Antonia, like a joke for a day. And now arrived in New York City when about last June we opened this place with also Theo from Le Baladin, and this is a brew pub in the rooftop just in New York City, in the 15th floor, and we brewed there special beer that are just a combination between the Italian culture and the American culture, using Italian and American ingredients, and trying to make a fusion between the Italian and the American culture. And so now we are going to open this place also in Rome, and we will bring the American culture, brewing culture in Rome, and let's see what's happened. So.
Thank you, Leonardo. One of our secrets in Italy is that most of our brewers located in the middle of nowhere, off the beaten tracks, in a beautiful landscape, they find other artisan craft maker that have the same philosophy of them, and they collaborate soon, making new products. For example, steeping beer, cheese in beer, or making new raw meat, or making praline, chocolate praline filled with beer, make a new product, a good craft beer, a good craft other products. This is one our strength we have in Italy now. But I want to give the word to Eric Wallace, because Eric is a great friend of me. He speaks Italian. His wife is Italian. I know Italian very well. I want to ask him what is good, how you feel the change in Italy during your several visits, what is good and what is wrong as well in Italy this moment. Because we have also to speak about not only the good thing, but also the bad thing, hoping to change the bad thing. Thank you.
All right, I'll speak English. I lived in Italy from 1985 to, and with the exception of 1 year, until 93 when I moved back to the States. And saw what was going on here in the U.S. with all these little breweries opening up. So Italy has come a great way. When I left Italy in '93, the only small brewery, and I didn't know that there were small breweries. I thought that all breweries were big at that point, was this little place up on the north end of Lake Garda called Orabroy. and it was just a little brew pub. I'd never seen a brew pub before. That's the first one I'd ever seen. I moved back to the States and found all these little guys opening up here, and got into the movement. But I go back to Italy just about every year. My wife's Italian. My kids go over there. We see all the relatives and everything. And a friend of mine that we've been in the same unit in Aviano, he had opened a pub, and this is back in the 90s. He said, "Hey, you should think about sending your beer over here. You know, we need to, it would be, I'm sure people would buy it." And he said, "You really need to check out Pianeta Birra, which was a huge Planet beer. It's a big trade fair down in Rimini." He said, "You should check that out." And I'd started coming over to the Salone about 12 years ago or something. And we had an American booth there. We were starting to show our beer there. So I said, well, we're showing it there. Let's go to Pianeta Birra. And that's where we first started meeting all of the Italian craft brewers. started meeting those guys. And there was only maybe a dozen or so that we first met at Salone in Torino, and then in Rimini in the middle of winter. And we started talking to these guys, started showing our beers, and there was a real enthusiasm amongst these guys, very similar to what we had in the U.S., you know, a decade or two ago. All these guys that have the fire to make the beer. And the beautiful thing is, Italy, in some respects, very similar to the United States in that we had pretty much wiped out completely our beer culture here in the U.S. until everything was basically indistinguishable. Very similar thing to a lesser scale had happened in Italy, because imports were still pretty strong. But the Italians, in their knowledge and love of flavor and food, are set up perfectly to start making a lot of these really, really interesting beers. Some of my favorite examples are a little brewery called Troll. They go out and they get moss off of trees, and they use that in the beer. Dano. It's an interesting fellow. You should have some beers with him sometime. Talking to a lot of these guys 10 years ago or so at Pianeta Birra, we were doing seminars, and I remember a lot of the hops that we used were unavailable to the Italians. And guys were coming up and saying, "Hey, I made an IPA, try it." You know, and in the early days, I'd try the IPA and say, "That doesn't really make me think of IPA when I try that beer." But a lot of the hops that we use over here were not available to them. One time we were driving through the fields. It was actually Vinny and Natalie and Beppe from Bidou and I in the car, and he's like, "Eric, I want to make American IPA. I have an idea." That's kind of how he talks. No? Parla così. Can you help me get some hops? So Vinny gets on the phone with one of the Ralphs up at Hop Union while we're driving, and they make a hop deal from the vehicle as we're driving, and trying to open up some of those channels to make these hops available to these guys. The creativity over there is one of the most fascinating things, and that's a very positive force for Italian brewing. Some of the difficult things, I think, distribution, the technical, unsexy side, is pretty tough in Italy. It's just the overall logistics system there is a kind of a bear to deal with, and a lot of these guys, it's harder for them to expand nationally with a dedicated sales force. Some of them are starting to get to scale now, where maybe you start to see some of that. I don't know. It's kind of a natural progression. Another thing is when you're really small, you don't have good lab facilities, so some of the beers, especially 10 years ago, pretty rough. A lot of technical difficulties going on in there, and I think that the honesty as people communicate, the brewers communicate with one another, that honesty is like, "Hey man, you need to get the diacetyl out of your beer, you need to work on the DMS, or that thing's a little sour." I think that a lot of the quality is really starting to come up as the competition comes up. I mean, how many breweries have failed in Italy in the last few years? Have gone out of business?
I think there is about 150 breweries
that have gone away.
Yes.
Yeah, and some of that may be bad business practice, some of that may be rough quality, and the better guys are going to float to the top, and they're going to get better. They're going to end up with a lab. They're going to end up with a microscope. They're going to get better and more sophisticated as it comes along.
Question for Leo, as an Italian brewer, what do you see as you distribute in the U.S. market and you distribute in Italy? What do you see as the difference in the two markets? When you think of customers, is there a difference in what sells well, the styles people like?
The difference, obviously, I saw that in the United States, the extreme beers are loved much more than in Italy. For example, in Italy, much of the beers that are loved by the people is the beer that you can pair with the food. So the connection between beer and food is very important, and it is a big difference. So that's I think one of the important differences.
I want to point out to one thing that. There are a lot of breweries now, maybe too much, but there are two kinds of brewery. The brewery that start in the right way and the brewery that start in the wrong way, in my opinion. The right way, 99% are brewers that come from long experience on brewing. So they have in their hand a recipe and experience, and they start with a recipe in their hand and collaboration with other brewery, and they start in the right way. And very soon, some breweries start with a great beer very soon. After 2 or 3 months, they brew already good beer. And the wrong side, and when the brewery is open, not following a passion, following satisfaction, but following only money. So I watch in the eyes the new brewery. There's a brewery in the first row here, Claudio Cerullo. I watch in his eyes, and I see passion, and passion 3 times. But most of the new breweries are open for businessmen that smell the money, because there's a good trend in this moment. So they are owner of other companies, and they open, and in their eyes I see euro, and euro. And I'm sure that the first one will have a great success in future, and the flop, the second one, I hope.
Think what we had here in the mid-90s when everyone started smelling money when the thing started to pop. Very similar thing going on in Italy right now, where all of a sudden, we can make a lot of money real fast. Well, it's the wrong business to be making a lot of money real fast.
Now there are new consumers, so when a brewer is free, can brew beer, extreme beer, or beer following his philosophy. So on the contrary, in some brew pubs, the brewer is not free. He has to brew only anonymous beer. This is not good. We are free. We Italians are free people. Fantasy, creativity. Let your brewer free. You got a great beer, in my opinion, on this.
Well,
and another thing I wanted to add is the birth of the beer tourism in Italy. I invite you to come to Italy, and in the beautiful food, beautiful landscape, you have a warm welcome from great brew pubs and microbreweries that open their doors, and there now a beer tourism to US. I was guide of a lot of beer lovers that came with me in Denver, in San Diego. There are some pictures there, and the next year in San Francisco area. So now there are, apart Belgium, it is heaven for beer tourism in Italy. Now US become the second heaven. Okay, I'll leave you the microphone for some questions.
If anybody has some questions, come on up to the microphone and ask them so everybody hears the questions, and we'll do our best to answer. Probably just 3. We only got a few minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out here. I have a question about the continuously hopped Pilsner that you did. Now, did you release it in different markets? You said here in the States and also in Europe. Did you blend the beers, or how is it different? Did you try each other's beer?
I think the beer is almost the same recipe, and we didn't change nothing. I think the things that changed are the brewery. So there should be a little bit of difference coming in the different breweries, but it's not in different water, obviously. But we use the same ingredients, and this is the idea. I don't know if Sam made some changes, but I don't.
No, we didn't. The biggest difference I would say is now that Dogfish has been continually hopping our IPAs for 12 or 13 years, and we have a pretty sizable brewery, we have an automated machine called Sofa King Hoppy that shoots a stream of hops into our kettle every single minute. But in Italy, at Leo's brewery, it's all by hand. So I don't know how they say Sam's a fucking asshole in Italian, but every minute there's an Italian brewer when they're making that beer going, Sam's a fucking asshole.
In fact, I can add that every day that is going to be brewed in my Antonia, you see the birds that run away from the kettle.
First of all, good evening. I wanted to say grazie and molto bene for championing the beers throughout the world into Italy and so forth, and really going ahead and moving the craft beer movement. It's terrific news. My wife and I, we'd gone on our honeymoon to Italy 5 years ago, had a wonderful time, traveled all the way up the coast, as north as Milano and as south as Napoli. Where best, because we're talking about going back, we love Italy, we had a wonderful time. Where best in Italy to go and find the craft beers, to find the cities that are really going to embrace the movement? Because, yeah, honestly, when we went in 2006, we had a hard time finding. It was great wine, it was great pasta, we loved it, but we want to really, I was disappointed. I was like, oh, I got to find some really good beer here. So when we go back, I want to find it. So where best to look for that?
To your question, only 2 or 3 years ago, I had replied Piedmont, northern Italy, but now I can say all the country. There are, of course, some paradise, some heaven. Rome, for example. Rome is full of wonderful place to drink beer, and to make a tour in Piedmont, I think Piedmont is perfect. There's a lot of great brewery, but I think everywhere now, everywhere. I suggest you to add a good brewery, a good beer, to good landscape. To follow some guide that you can add a wonderful place, a wonderful beer, and the guy there is special. He can add you. I want to make a gift to you. I have the T-shirt of Union Consumer in Italy. I need large people because it's XXL. I love large people.
Oh, I love large people too. That's nice. Oh, her dindle went up. Very nice, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
That was very American, throwing T-shirts into a crowd.
I'm half American now. I judged it in World Beer Cup 4 times, GABF 1 time, and now it's a consecration, this presentation.
We got time for one more question. Let's do that.
This question is geared more towards the brewery that is already packaging their beer and looking at distribution options. For the brewery sending beer to Europe, what difference, or Italy specifically, what difference does one-way or recyclable packaging make for acceptance with the distributors and on-premise market?
What difference will what kind of packaging?
One-way packaging.
One-way
so
packaging?
like key kegs or similar.
I can talk a little bit about that. About between 1% and 2% of our beers going over to Italy. That's why we send beers like the Imperial Stout over there, because you don't have consistent refrigeration everywhere. But one thing we found, we've tried some kegs that belong to one of our Dutch wholesalers, but unfortunately, another problem in Italy, they will not allow their kegs to go to Italy because they never come back. Doesn't matter how much deposit you put on it, they just don't come back. So we've gone to using key kegs. Those are those plastic kind of bottles with a cardboard thing around them, and those things, you use them one time and then they bust down. They can be pretty much all recycled, and that's been pretty handy way to go in terms of doing draft. and I think you're going to see more and more of you guys doing that.
All right, guys, that's about all the time that we have. But a big thanks to Leonardo, Eric Wallace, Lorenzo DeBove, and Sam Calagione for sharing this with us. And thank you for sharing the beer, too. That's really your time. It's a wonderful story you guys have going. Did you have something else, Sam? No, you're good. Really, thanks for all your time. Thanks for you guys for hanging out. I appreciate it. We got more coming up. There's a whole other panel. It's a Champion Brewery tasting coming up tonight. All the breweries that won the best medals last year are going to be in here tonight, so we're going to check it out. Thanks again to the Italian-American Craft Beer Connection.